August 14th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with Liberation Day special pardons. President Yoon on Tuesday granted a special pardon to over 1,200 people ahead of the National Liberation Day on Thursday. The list of figures includes former Gyeongsang-namdo Province Governor Kim Kyung-soo, who will now be able to run for a public office. Ukraine now claims to have taken control of over 70 villages in Russia's Kursk region. Russia insists it's pushing the Ukrainian military out of its territory. South Korea saw a record-high electricity demand this week due to the sizzling summer heat. Nationwide electricity consumption is likely to go up, with the blistering heat expected to linger for a while. President Yoon has granted Liberation Day pardons to more than 1,200 people. Now, as expected, President Yoon made it possible for a key liberal politician, Kim Kyung-soo, to return to politics. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
In light of the upcoming National Liberation Day, President Yoon has paved the way for the return to politics for a key opposition figure, restoring the rights of Kim Kyung-soo, a former Gyeongsang-namdo Province governor who was convicted of manipulating a number of online comment sections to help former President Moon Jae-in's election win in 2017. On Tuesday, the Justice Ministry announced that a total of 55 politicians have been included in the customary National Liberation Day pardon and clemency list.
In particular, by granting pardons to those involved in public opinion manipulation, regardless of political affiliation, we aim to resolve the resulting political conflicts and create an opportunity to move forward in unity for the sake of national interest.
Kim was pardoned back in December 2022, which only got him out of jail early, but he was prohibited from running for public office until December 2027. Kim is considered a key figure in the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea, and with this, he's now able to run for public office. In 2026 is the nationwide local elections, and in 2027, there is the next presidential election. And other politicians among the pardoned included Cho Yoon-sun, a former culture minister under former President Park Geun-hye, who was convicted for creating a blacklist of cultural figures. Meanwhile, in terms of the total list, President Yoon pardoned 1,219 people. More than 410,000 were also relieved of administrative penalties. Many of these were returning driving privileges to people who need to drive for their jobs.
This pardon was primarily focused on revitalizing the struggling economy for ordinary citizens amid concerns about a global economic downturn, and on creating an opportunity for national unity and harmony.
In the meantime, the Justice Ministry says that 20 of the pardons made were for financial crimes business owners convicted due to being unable to pay off their debt. However, the ministry emphasizes there were no pardons for non-face-to-face online frauds targeting a large, unspecified number of people. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Kyiv says it captured 74 villages in the Kursk region and vowed to stop its offensives in mainland Russia if Moscow agrees to a fair peace deal. However, Russia shot back, saying it's in the process of pushing back the Ukrainian military. Lee Seung-jae has more.
Ukraine continued to push ahead with its offensive in Russia's Kursk region for the 8th day on Tuesday. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said that his military was able to capture 74 villages in the region, while Kyiv's top commander said that its forces were able to advance 3 kilometers in one day, taking control of an additional 40 square kilometers of Russian territory. Ukraine says it has no intention of occupying Russian territory, adding that it would stop its offensives in mainland Russia if Moscow agrees to a fair peace deal. However, Moscow is looking to repel the Ukrainian forces, saying it's already in the process of doing so. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, Ukraine has already lost up to 420 troops in the past 24 hours, and over 2,000 soldiers have been killed since the incursions began on August 6th. While the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry called on Russia to agree to restore peace in the 2.5-year-long war, Russian President Vladimir Putin a day earlier said no negotiations could happen with those that attack civilians and civilian infrastructure, slamming the 8-day-long incursion. Meanwhile, continued fighting in the Kursk region is also raising major concerns over threats it can pose to energy infrastructures in the region. Fighting took place in a region where a pipeline carrying Russian natural gas to Europe via Ukraine is located, while missile fragments were found near the Kursk nuclear power plant. Russian nuclear operators say that the power plant is currently functioning normally, and radiation levels at the plant and the surrounding area are stable. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, amid fears of a wider war in the Middle East, U.S. President Joe Biden has hinted that Iran could possibly skip a retaliatory strike on Israel if a ceasefire deal in Gaza is reached. In the meantime, Hamas says it launched another strike on Israel's central city. Peunji reports.
Hamas has said it fired 2 rockets targeting Israel's Tel Aviv, but the Israeli military said one fell in the sea off the central city, while the other did not cross into the country's territory. Local media outlets said explosions were heard in the city on Tuesday local time, but no casualties were reported. Amid escalating tensions in the region, U.S. President Joe Biden has said Iran could hold off on a retaliatory strike on Israel if a ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel is reached.
We'll see what Iran does and we'll see what happens if there's any attack. But I'm not giving up.
His remarks come after Iran vowed a severe response against Israel over the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, who was killed in Tehran after attending the Iranian president's inauguration. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations also called on members of the Security Council to help finalize and implement a ceasefire agreement for Gaza.
The United States' overall goal remains to turn the temperature down in the region, deter and defend against any future attacks, and avoid regional conflict. That starts with finalizing a deal for an immediate ceasefire with hostage release in Gaza.
While a ceasefire deal still remains uncertain, the Palestinian leader has reportedly said Iran could soon decide whether or not to retaliate against Israel. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who's currently visiting Moscow, told Russia's TASS news agency on Tuesday local time that the decision could be made in the next few days, or even the next few hours. While adding that Palestinians are against war, he noted the U.S. is actively involved in ceasefire negotiations, although it's hard to foresee what will happen. Peunji, Arirang News.
So, Iranian retaliation against Israel after the assassination of a Hamas political leader appears to be imminent. But it's been like this for the past 2 weeks. So much threat, but no actual show of force yet. Let's turn to Dr. Baek Seung-won this morning. It's good to have you back.
Thank you for having me to your show.
So, why is it that Iran is yet to take any action against Israel yet?
A spokesman for Iran's foreign minister, Nasser Khanen, said that it is necessary to punish Israel, which was in lining with the comments from other senior Iranian officials. But he also said that Tehran is not interested in escalating the regional conflict. There are reasons of this articulated rhetoric that there will be retaliation, but it will be limited one. So the new Iranian president, Pezeshkian, have not yet finished forming his cabinet members, including the foreign minister. He has selected who he wanted to be on the position, but it is yet to be approved. So it is likely to have slow internal deliberations on the attack on Israel. And on top of that, Iranian President Pezeshkian, who is seen as a reformist, may try to balance a perceived need to project strength with his government's broader interest in elevating the efforts of Western economic sanction and in preventing Iran from becoming further isolated internationally. It is witnessed in the gestures of Pezeshkian, who openly requests the Supreme Leader Khamenei that the escalation should not go on a full-scale confrontation. So if you recall the presidential campaign of Pezeshkian, he had solely focused on his agendas on economic reform, including lifting off the sanction that has imposed on Iran. So for Pezeshkian, the retaliation has to be carefully calibrated in order to keep the possibility of with the West that could lead to potential sanction relief. So there is a high possibility that the military response would be staged to be viewed as a largely symbolic retaliation. So it is taking the time because they have to make the calibration.
Definitely. And, you know, some say the attacks will come in the coming days. It's been saying that. And some say right before the ceasefire talks that are set to take place on the 15th. Dr. Beck, what's your take on the timing of Iran's show of force then?
I'm very sorry that I could not give a clear-cut answer to this, but because firstly, I do not have the crystal ball, and secondly, Iran's decision-making process on the retaliation is happening in the total black box. So, but I would like to point out from the military strategy standpoint. So, to make a successful military operation, security of information is the key. So, it is one-on-one of military strategy. So media has been releasing the information that August 12 or 13, which is the Tisha B'Av, the saddest day on the Jewish calendar, because it is the day that destruction of the Holy Temple and Iran will making the head on that particular period. And U.S. government are saying that has warned that there are a high chance of Iranian attack before August 15th, the scheduled ceasefire negotiations on Hamas and Israel. But this information is all out, and U.S. finished their reinforcement by sending Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, strategic nuclear submarine, and a full F-22 squadron to the Middle East. And if that is the case, why Iran take the risk? If we go back to what had happened in April this year, when Iran consulate in Syria was hit by Israel, all media was on predicting Iran retaliation will happen, that Laylat al-Qadr, which is night of power, the day of Ramadan, a month. But we all know the result. Iran did make their move by direct strike on Israel, but it wasn't that particular date. So Iran will choose the D-Day when they feel it will maximize their proposal and their national interest. So it will happen 12 or 13, 15th. I mean, the information is all spilled. So it is highly unlikely that Iran will choose that day for their D-Day.
Well, let's say the attacks that do take place, that how powerful or devastating will these attacks be? I mean, will it attempt to kill a significant Israeli figure like Israel is suspected of doing so?
So no one can tell what will be the harsh revenge that Iran's top leadership, Ayatollah Khamenei, had promised. But it won't be full-scale war. The retaliation will be calibrated. And since it is not only Haniyeh who've been killed, but also field general of Hezbollah, Sukur, was assassinated, it is likely that substantial attack will be performed by the excess of resistance. So it could be killing Israel military or government personnel is the possible option because it is eye for an eye. And any asymmetry limited warfare is a possible scenario, using drone, missile, and agent, the secret agent, to not only assassinate important personnel, but make a damage on the symbolic facility, such as the Mossad branch and some of the military headquarters that kind of gave the green light to assassinate Haniyeh and Sukur, are probably most likely option that Iran will gonna attack.
Then how will Israel respond to these Iranian attacks? I mean, it appears that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is having some, his own trouble with his country's defense minister. What's going on there?
So same as usual, they will retaliate, but it won't be as Prime Minister Netanyahu had said in public. Three-front total war against Houthi, Hezbollah, Iran, and strong preemptive strike in Iran mainland and deploying its full force on Lebanon. Because currently, Israel leadership does not have the political and economic resource to make this hard drive, unless there's a big outside push, such as, successful Iran attack, killing many of Israel's citizens. And Defense Minister Yoav Gallant reportedly called Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's promise of absolute victory in the ongoing war as gibberish. He kind of said it and made a statement. It is what it is. I mean, Israel had spent tons of money and have not even finished military operation on Hamas in Gaza. But is Netanyahu saying that he will make an absolute victory against axis of resistance, even if it means opening three-front war with them? It's almost impossible test. That's why Galan are kind of saying, because he's a general. He was once a general of Israel Defense Forces, and he knew it's almost impossible task to do that. That's why many of experts are claiming that Netanyahu wants prolonged conflict in order to buy his time for his regime survival. So that's why it's creating a lot of mess in an internal domestic politics of Israel.
Alrighty, Dr. Beck, thank you so much for your thorough analysis. As always, you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
South Korea is seeing a record high electricity demand due to the ongoing heat wave. The sizzling summer heat has also led to a spike in heat-related illnesses and caused some significant damage to the livestock and the fishery sector. Our Yoon has this report.
South Korea's electricity demand hit a record high on Monday, with more people switching on their air conditioning units due to the intense summer heat. Data from the Korea Power Exchange on Tuesday reveals that peak power demand reached around 102.3 gigawatts between 2 to 3 p.m. on Monday, surpassing the previous record of 100.5 gigawatts set last August. Such a surge in demand comes as South Korea is experiencing sweltering temperatures. The country's meteorological center reported a high of around 34 degrees Celsius in Seoul on Monday. Additionally, Seoul has experienced a 23-day streak of tropical nights with minimum temperatures of at least 25 degrees. The total number of heat-related illnesses this year, from May 20th to August 11th, has reached almost 2,300. This surpasses last year's total for the same period of around 2,100 cases. The total number of heat-related deaths reported this year stands at 21. The heat wave has also significantly affected livestock and fisheries. Between June 11th and August 12th, over 700,000 animals have died due to extreme temperatures. In the fisheries sector, nearly 900,000 fish have perished. In the coming days, most regions nationwide are expected to experience extreme heat, with field-like temperatures of around 35 degrees Celsius. Tropical nights are also forecast for many areas of the country, particularly along the west coast. Meanwhile, experts say the country's electricity consumption is likely to increase, even more so due to increased demand in the semiconductor industry, as well as a greater need for air conditioning and EV charging. Yoon, Arirang News.
Korean actor Cha In-pyo's novel addressing the issue of comfort women has been globally received, with the prestigious Oxford University having selected it as a reading material. Cha recently talked to Arirang TV's program The Globalist about his novel, and here's a sneak peek.
An actor and a writer whose writing is to be studied at one of most prestigious universities in the world. That is Cha In-pyo, whose novel Once We Look at the Same Star was selected as reading material for Korean studies classes from next semester at Oxford University. He was even invited as a guest speaker at the university's inaugural Korean Literature Festival on June 28th. His inspiration to address the issue of comfort woman came when he saw on TV a woman known as Grandma Hoon coming back home from Cambodia in 1997. She was just 16 years old when taken from her hometown by the Japanese army and forced into sexual slavery, known euphemistically as comfort woman. Korea was liberated from Japanese colonial rule in 1945, but many comfort women, including Grandma Hoon, could not come back home out of shame. She lived half a century in the Cambodian jungle until she came across a Korean traveler to whom she expressed her wish to go back home. Though she lost her language, her identity, she could sing the Korean folk song Arirang, and that moved his heart.
My heart was aching because of the mixed feeling of, I would say, sadness, anger, and disappointment, humiliation. When I thought of these comfort women, this word, what if, kept coming to my mind. What if? What if these women were not taken away, had not been taken away, and somehow could have stayed home. These what-ifs were my questions, so I started writing my novel.
Filled with resentment, he started writing a novel. But such intense, negative emotion could not sustain him, and when his laptop broke, he just gave up. 6 years later, he started writing again, motivated not by political sentiment, but to let his children know the painful history of comfort women. He adds that when we fully empathize with the pain of one era, the next generation will not have to suffer the same pain.
Whether you are Korean or Japanese or from any other country in the world, if we gather together and fully empathize the pain of comfort women together, then I think the genuine apology, not the forced one, will emerge from there, as well as the true reconciliation for the next generation.
The full episode of Cha In-pyo's in-depth story will be on air on The Globalists on Wednesday at 4:50 p.m. Korea time. 김보경, 아리랑 뉴스.
Good morning. I'm Kim Si-young, and this is The World Now. We begin today in India, where some 300,000 resident doctors and 8,000 physicians are on strike as of Tuesday, demanding justice for the female trainee doctor who was raped and murdered at a government-run hospital in Kolkata. Now, thousands of doctors, nurses and medics marched in Kolkata and the surrounding West Bengal state before the protests spread to western Maharashtra state and India's capital, New Delhi, where junior doctors held banners that read, "Doctors are not punching bags." West Bengal's Health Secretary Narayan Swarup Nigam appealed to the protesting doctors, asking them to return to work as medical services were halted by the demonstrations. The protests come after a 31-year-old female trainee doctor was found dead on Friday morning in a seminar room of the R.G. Carr Medical College, where an autopsy showed that she was sexually assaulted and murdered the night before. The West Bengal State Minister, Mamata Banerjee, said on Monday that the principal of the college has resigned, while a high court in Kolkata ordered the criminal investigation to be handed over to India's Central Bureau of Investigation, a federal agency. Authorities have said that a police volunteer was arrested in connection with the crime. A study released on Monday says an immense reservoir of liquid water may exist on planet Mars under the rocky outer crust of the planet. The findings come after analysis of data from NASA's Mars InSight lander showed the reservoir located some 11 to 20 kilometers below the Martian surface within fractured igneous rocks, indicating that it is large enough to hold enough water to fill an ocean the size of the planet's surface. The InSight lander, which has been on Mars since 2018, measured seismic data from vibrations over 4 years, which showed the presence of liquid underground. While previous probes found frozen water at the Martian poles, the evidence of water vapor in the atmosphere, this is the first time liquid water has been found on the planet. A former member of Unit 731, the Japanese Army's biological weapons unit, which conducted horrific experiments on humans during the Second World War, arrived in Harbin City in northeast China on Monday to testify and expose the unit's crimes and apologize to the victims. Hideo Shimizu was among the last batch of the Unit 731 Youth Corps when he was sent by Japan to Harbin. He spent over 4 months witnessing human dissections, experiments, and cultivation and testing of pathogens on living human samples. Shimizu, who was conscripted into the army in March 1945, was only 14 years old when he was stationed in China before fleeing with the retreating Japanese military in August 1945. Now 94 years old, he revealed his identity as a former Unit 731 member in 2016 and began his campaign of public appearances and interviews to expose its atrocities. Unit 731, Japan's secret chemical and biological warfare research base during the Second World War, performed human experiments on at least 30,000 people. Almost 5 years after over 100 million euros worth of jewelry was stolen from the Green Vault Museum in Dresden, Germany, the collection can once again be seen by the public after police recovered most of the stolen jewels. In November 2019, thieves stole pieces from the Green Vault Museum, including over 4,300 diamonds with an estimated value of over 124 million US dollars. While the German police have said most of the stolen items have been returned, pieces including an epaulette on which a precious stone known as the Dresden White Diamond was mounted remain missing. An official from Dresden State Museums said that the jewelry pieces will be back on display in their original spots this week.
Good morning. Seoul had its hottest afternoon temperatures of the season at 36.4 degrees Celsius yesterday. Sudden downpours in the evening gave a little relief from the heat, but it was one searing day under sunny skies. It looks as though western parts of Korea are hotter than the rest, and the warming trend continues on this Malbo, considered to be the last day of searing summer heat. Then another round of passing rain is in the forecast for mostly western regions. Rain could pound down once it starts to rain. Jeju Island, however, will see heavy rainfall through Friday. Seoul walked up to the second longest run of consecutive tropical nights on record, 24 nights in a row. There is a chance we could set a new record this week. Meanwhile, Seoul and Daejeon getting up to 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon, and skies will remain sunny until that rain falls. Tomorrow looks to be a repeat of today's forecast, and unbearable heat looks to continue for another week or so. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.
진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지?
김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색.
김밥? 시장에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥? 취향 따라, 입맛 따라.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도, 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지.
제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기.
한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지?
김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색.
김밥? 시장에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥? 취향 따라, 입맛 따라.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지.
제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기.
한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸?
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We're News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Wednesday, August 14th here in Seoul. I'm Song Jin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Cheska Dayan-ho.
Happy Wednesday, everyone.
Happy Hump Day. Yay! And Kikip.
Happy Up Day. Hello, everybody.
Hi. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, as always, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online. The National Museum of Korea's video showcasing its Lee Hong-gun Donation Hall has been named the Red Dot winner, the second highest honor of this year's Red Dot Design Awards Brands and Communication Design Division. This award is one of the world's top 3 design competitions alongside the IF and IDEA Design Awards. The museum's video features 26 transparent OLED displays by LG Display, which showcase explanations of the artifacts and play animation-like videos that blend with them. Moving on, K-pop boy group 17, UNESCO's first ever Goodwill Ambassadors for Youth, launched a UNESCO support program for young people on Monday. In a video posted on UNESCO's YouTube channel, the 13-member group introduced the Going Together for Youth Creativity and Wellbeing grant. This initiative will fund 100 selected projects in music, arts, and sports led by individuals aged 18 to 30 from around the world. 17 pledged to donate $1 million to the program when they were appointed ambassadors in June. Finally, Carbon Plan, a non-profit climate science and analytics organization based in the United States, has predicted that by 2050, extreme heat could make hosting the Summer Olympics a major health risk for athletes and spectators in most cities around the world. This includes states near the Gulf of Mexico, Mediterranean cities, and even some places that have previously hosted the Summer Olympics, such as Beijing, Athens, Atlanta, Tokyo, and Seoul. By 2050, heat stress levels in these areas are forecast to exceed the 82.1-degree limit, the threshold at which experts recommend canceling sports events. This level is determined by a combination of factors: heat, humidity, wind speed, sun angle, and cloud cover. Now, the Paris 2024 Summer Olympics, which concluded this week, actually Sunday local time, it also experienced severe weather conditions throughout the event, right, Ki?
That's true. It came to close on Sunday, and temperature soared up to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 35 degrees Celsius. So extreme heat is growing to be a threat for elite athletes, with cases of heat exhaustion and heat stroke becoming more common. And I recall being in Pyeongchang 2018 being super cold, like minus 20 degrees Celsius. And even the athletes from Sweden or Denmark, from like Eastern European countries, they said it was too cold. But just last year, some European cities that include London and Paris, they went above 40 degrees Celsius, which is pretty hot. And not only the athletes, it also concerns the fans who actually go there to watch the game. Just in Korea, too, for the KBO, the Korean Professional Baseball Leagues, last week, some of the fans who were there to watch the game fainted out, as a matter of fact. So it's definitely concerning.
Right. Now, in response to these boiling temperatures, some are now actually suggesting we consider changing the timing of the Summer Olympics since the games are currently taking place during the peak heat in the summer. So, Cheska, I want to ask you, are there any precedents for this, and what's your stance on this idea?
You know, it's really shocking that even something as official as the Olympics is even considering changing the dates because of the literally global boiling phase. I mean, it was announced since last year from the United Nations that now we have transitioned from global warming to a literal global boiling phase, and an official announcement has been made. And we unfortunately do have a couple of precedents that have taken place, including the Sydney Olympics as well as the 2016 Rio Olympics that took place in August, and the Sydney moving to September and October. So usually we discussed this before, but what I'm afraid is that now we won't have the summer and fall distinction anymore. It would be like extreme summer and then medium summer and the low summer, and then we transition right into the winter. So more important than changing the dates, I think, is that we normalize the weather so we can actually keep the 4 seasons, 4 weathers, and have the athletes, the audience, and the entire world just be in peaceful and happy place when we watch these Olympic Games.
Right, definitely more efforts needed to really cool down the temperature and the overheated intense heat this summer. And that was our news feed for this Wednesday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day by taking a look at the screen.
Today is Maibok, known as the last of the 3 hottest days of the year on Korea's traditional seasonal calendar. As temperatures continue to break records this summer, many people are struggling, with heat-related illnesses on the rise. In response to this intense heat, there's a long-standing tradition in Korea of eating boyangsik, or body-nourishing summer health food on these 3 hottest days to help cope with the heat. Today, we're going to take a look at the latest trends in Korea's boyangsik culture.
Right, so as just shown, today is Maibok here in Korea. So starting off, for those who might not be familiar with Maibok Day's boyangsik tradition, Ki, can you tell us some of the most common dishes that people in Korea have and why?
Well, just looking at the screen just makes me, my mouth waters, of course. Mostly cooked, mostly eaten food normally be samgyetang, chicken soup, or 장어구이, broiled eel, or haeshintang is a new trend. That's a stew with octopus, abalone, beef ribs, or sometimes you would eat something very spicy for your stamina. And in Korea, we have this word saying 이열치열, meaning you win the heat with the heat, and to be immune with this hot weather and everything. And after having hot food and sweating it out, we all feel refreshed. And it's not necessarily a superstition or necessarily scientifically proven, but you do feel refreshed and charged up after having these meals.
Right. So here in Korea, on Maibok or the 3 Bok days, we tend to have we normally have meat or fish-based hot dishes. That's kind of like the Maibok food culture or food tradition here in the country. Now, Cheska, I want to ask you, as today is Maibok, how are you planning to spend Maibok? Are you also planning to have the classic samgyetang, chicken soup, or are you looking for something else?
Oh, you know, I initially did because I really love the samgyetang soup because they brew it with the Korean's traditional herbs.
Right, and the medicinal herbs.
Yeah, and it has a medicinal effect, and you know, it really recharges you. And there's a chewy rice that is embedded in the process.
You seem really excited.
I am excited. But out of curiosity, I wondered if there were vegan or vegetarian options for the people out there to refuel during these hot and exhaustive phases. So as an MZer, I did the Googling and was able to find a list of vegetarian recipes for 봄날. And there was actually a lot. There's a cold noodle with bean paste, 콩국수, we all know of. And there's an interesting thing called chaegejang, which is also a menu that is promoted by the Buddhist Korean temple that replaces meat with veggies and mushrooms.
Inside a soup, right?
Yes, inside a soup. And it's a bit hot and it's a bit spicy. So as Ki said, it's 이열치열. We Koreans like to have hot food during the hot summer. So this is something that I actually discovered and would love to try, actually.
Right. And all the new menus that you've just mentioned, they are based on a vegetarian diet. Now, we've discussed this several times on NewsGen before, but it's clear that more young people in Korea especially are adopting vegetarian dishes, diets, with many even trying out vegetarian 보양식 like Cheska mentioned earlier. So I want to ask you guys, what do you think is driving this trend towards vegetarianism?
Yeah, because I was really curious until I did the research that we have so many vegetarian 봄날 recipes that actually replace the very long traditional the meat-based recipe. So let's take a look at the screen to see how the numbers have grown in South Korea over the years. Now, according to South Korea's Vegan Union, just between 2008 and 2019, vegan population jumped by 10 times, which is huge because since then the number have been consistently growing. And I believe this is a very big change for a country like South Korea, where the diet restriction or selection is really not part of our traditional culture. We are definitely vegetarian-based, but we do add a lot of meat to our staple diet. So I think it definitely has more to do with our generation's characteristic of trying to be conscientious of our choices and purchase. And usually we discuss a couple of times here about the concept of like meaning out or conscious consumption. And I think MZers definitely prioritize environment, health, and animal rights. And I think practicing vegan or vegetarian diet fulfills all of these missions and criteria all at once. And of course, social media plays a big part. People post a lot about the importance of eating something and or the deliciousness of eating something. So I think that plays a part in it as well.
Right. So these are some of the reasons why the younger generation in Korea are gearing towards vegetarianism. Now, as part of this generation, Ki, do you also agree that vegetarianism is gaining traction here in the country?
Exactly. I mean, social media plays a obviously bigger role because it makes me guilty when I eat a lot of meat. But also plant-based meat and vegan brands are rising as well.
Yes.
According to Korea Agro Fisheries and Trade Corps, the scale of plant-based meat industry was $17.4 million in 2020, which was 23.7% increase from year 2016. And they forecast about 5.6% of growth every single year. And we expect the market be at $22.6 million, a 29.7% increase at year 2025. And all the major food brand in Korea, such as CJ, 농심, 오뚜기, they all have a sub-brand just for the vegan diet. So saying that it's try to capture all the those MZers who try to eat healthy.
Right. So the plant-based or the vegetarian food market here in the country is definitely growing. Now, as today is 복날, 말복 day once again, we're going to now focus on this new trend of meat-free 보양식 among our generation. So after the break, we're going to invite an expert in food science to our talks. So today we're joined by David Julian McClements, Distinguished Professor at the University of Massachusetts Department of Food Science. Welcome, Professor McClements, to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be on your show.
Lovely to have you. So our first question for you, Professor, is why is it important to have nutritious meals that are often called 보양식 here in Korea during the summertime?
Yeah, I think there's some special sort of nutritional needs during summer. I think because it's so hot and humid, you tend to sweat a lot, so you lose a lot of moisture and a lot of electrolytes. So it's really important to replace those. And you also want to eat sort of quite light meals, because if you have heavy meals, you generate a lot of heat when you're digesting the food. So, eating a lot of salads and things like that is really good.
I think there's an ongoing sort of interesting debate back and forth between people who practice vegetarian diets and people who eat meat-based diet about whether they can offer the same level of nourishment. What is your point on that? And if possible, do you think a vegetarian diet can offer the same amount of nutrition needs that a meat-based diet could?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think that there's bad vegetarian diets and there's good vegetarian diets, just like there is for people who eat meat. You can have good diets or bad diets. So it's really like if you eat vegetables, you can lose some valuable vitamins and minerals and proteins and omega-3 fatty acids. So you do have to be a little bit more careful when you're having a vegetarian diet. But I think you can you can eat healthily. And that's a lot of my students and postdocs are working in that area, trying to make the next generation of healthy plant-based foods.
So, Professor, with more people choosing to be a vegetarian or choosing a vegetarian diet these days, what are some of the summer healthy foods or summer health foods you would recommend us to keep us energized during this intense heat?
Yeah, well, I think it sounds like it's very hot and humid there. It's very nice and cool here, so we're not to do that. But yeah, I think a lot of salads would be good. Things that have got a high moisture content and that are quite easy to digest. So things like watermelon, sort of cucumbers, different kinds of salads. And I was really interested to learn about all these really unique foods that you have in Korea. I'd never heard of them before. But I do, if you do eat spicy foods, it does cause you to sweat, and that's the best way of cooling down. So I think that's really fascinating. And I think it's an area that we may have to do more research on in the future because of global warming. We might need these specialized foods that can help you stay cool.
Well, Professor McClemens, I hope you get a chance to try out Korea's summer health food sometime in the future. But thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so we're now going to expand our discussion. We're going to take a look at some of the summer health foods that are popular in other parts of the world. We also asked our viewers some of the popular summer health foods in their country. And here's what 3 of them said. User RD9BQ2HC90, a very long name, says, our country is almost always hot, so there is no food exclusively eaten when it's hot, but there are a few foods to avoid when it's hot. Wesley Fortney BQ4QT says, on a hot day, a salad of lettuce and vegetables with a couple of cold sandwiches is great. In America, a cold drink is common. Lemonade, iced tea, beer, frozen cocktails. Other common cold dishes are egg salad, potato salad, tuna salad, fresh vegetables. Ice cream is always good, plus some fresh watermelon. Leon Teo 93 says Singaporeans tend to gravitate towards lighter and refreshing food options during hot and humid weather. For example, soup or broths or ice-based desserts such as chendol or ice kacang. For health food, Chinese herbal soups are popular, like for example, ginseng chicken soup. So we've taken a look at the various types of summer health foods in a lot of parts in the world. And besides what Professor McClemens and our viewers mentioned, I want to ask our panelists, are there any other vegetarian-based diets or summer health dishes that you'd like to try or something that you would like to recommend to our viewers?
I actually did have a list, and I have so many.
Your list seems to be long.
I brought a list, but when you read the comments, I think my list just grew.
Oh, really?
But the food they talked about, and I know it's not completely vegetarian, but man, that ice cream sounds so good right now. But I did a bit of research, and there was a vegetarian version of samgyetang, and which is made with mushroom and so many packed nutritions with vegetable variations. So maybe that's a variation that I can still enjoy, still have the herbal soup, but with a little bit of vegetarian twist. And in Korea, we have something called 사찰음식, which is a Buddhist temple food.
Right.
And they use exclusively vegetables. And they make so many great side dishes. They're seasoned perfection, and they serve such a great portion also. And I saw some of the photos on Instagram, and I might consider visiting a couple of these places because they literally made me salivate, and I'm really happy just talking about them.
You really seem to be happy. So if you visit one of these places, please share how your experience was here on Newsden for us and our viewers as well.
I'll share it in our group chat.
Great. Now, Ki, are there any other dishes that you'd like to add on this long list already?
Nope. Actually, I'm more like a cook. I cook a lot of food at home, and I'm more of a meat person. But when I'm on a diet, as always, it's the summer, I eat a lot of tofu because tofu can be a really good food for the meat.
Yes.
And they have a lot of different kinds of tofu. And Jessica has actually mentioned kongguksu, the cold bean soup. But you can use this dried tofu noodle, we instead of an actual noodle. And then you can use this for a lot of different sorts of pasta. And the 들깨 두부탕 is one of my absolute favorite. That's been curd perlia seed soup. That's really great for you. It's really filling, and it's really great for your health as well because it doesn't really have a meat in it, but it's really filling your stomach and, it's a great taste.
Right, and beans have a lot of proteins, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to write all that down.
Less calories.
Yes. Oh, right, less calories, so very healthy. Yeah. And once again, before we wrap up, Korea's 보양식 or summer health food tradition is all about enduring and overcoming the summer heat. So last but not least, do you guys have any tips that you'd like to share with our viewers to stay healthy and if possible cool throughout the rest of the summer because we have a long way to go?
I know, and I'm still struggling. So if there were some tips that I actually did research, it should be applied to me. But when I did the research for today, the 봄날, the pork actually means you're literally collapsed. So what they meant when they said 봄날 traditionally means people were collapsed by the heat. So to get back up, a lot of traditional Korean medicine talk about the importance of preserving your energy and immune system. And so far, mine has been about, really loading up with vitamin C because as important it is to sweat to take the heat out. When you sweat, a lot of your minerals and nutrients gets released. So a lot of lemon water. And this was recommended in a lot of different medical magazines. Sleep. Because when it comes to summer, the first thing that gets disturbed is the sleep.
Right, quality sleep.
Yep, because we have the heat. And then even when you have the AC on, as we talked about, you keep waking up to turn it on, turn it off. And even the cold, breeze doesn't really give you a good quality sleep. So for entire cycle, I think one of the things that I should do also is to make sure that I have quality sleep.
Right. What about you, Ki?
Well, I'm more of a couch potato guy, so I'd rather play video games at home with a nicely air-conditioned room. But nowadays, what I do is at night when everything cools down just a little bit, when it's a bearable weather, I go to Hangang River Park, and I play some basketball. When you sweat out, you feel refreshed, and you come home, and then you sleep well. And also, I sometimes play drums. I have an electric drum set at home, but there's a lot of drum studios where you can go to smash that stress out and relieve from the heat. You'll be having a lot of fun.
Right, so trying out your hobbies, working out, having quality sleep, having a lot of supplements such as vitamin C's, and also don't forget to have some summer health food to stay healthy during this summer. And that's all from us today, but Newsden will be back on Friday at 9:30 a.m. Korea time as tomorrow is National Liberation Day in Korea, a national holiday. Special thanks today to Cheska Dainha.
Pleasure's always mine, thank you.
And Ki Kim.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you on Friday. We are News Generation.
요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 커널을 찾을 수도 있지. 제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기. 한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국 와보지 않고는 모를걸?